I stood at the altar in a $20,000 dress. I'd saved 3 years to afford looking at the man I was about to marry, and all I could think was, finally. Not because I loved him so deeply I couldn't wait another second, but because I was 37 years old and everyone in my life had convinced me this was my last chance, that if I didn't marry Kevin now, I'd end up alone forever childless, the cautionary tale whispered about at family gatherings. So when he said I do, I said it back and the crowd erupted in applause and I smiled for the photos. And I felt absolutely nothing except relief that I could finally stop being the single one, stop answering questions about why I wasn't married. Yet stop feeling like a failure every time another friend announced their pregnancy. I got married to shut everyone up, and it took me exactly 4 months to realize I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. Let me back up and tell you how I got here, how a smart, successful woman convinced herself that being married to the wrong person was better than being unmarried. I'd always been focused on my career, got my MBA at 25, climbed the corporate ladder fast, became a marketing director by 30 making $95,000 a year, owned my own condo, had investments, traveled, lived a life I was proud of, but at every single family gathering, every holiday, every birthday, the questions weren't about my achievements. They were about my relationship status. Are you seeing anyone? When are you going to settle down? Don't wait too long, your biological clock is ticking, you don't want to be alone forever. My mom would say it with concern dripping from her voice, my aunts would give me pitying looks, my married friends would set me up on blind dates with guys they described as nice, which I learned was code for boring but available. I really did have relationships that didn't work out for various reasons. One guy wanted kids immediately and I wanted to wait. One guy couldn't handle that I made more money than him. One guy was perfect on paper, but there was zero chemistry. I was okay being single. Genuinely okay. I had a full life, friends, hobbies, career I loved, but the constant pressure from everyone around me started seeping in, started making me question if maybe I was too picky, too focused on work, too independent. Maybe I needed to compromise more, lower my standards, stop waiting for some perfect person who didn't exist. Then I met Kevin at a work conference 2 years ago. He was in sales at a different company, 39, never been married, charming in a safe way. We started talking and he asked me to dinner. We dated for 6 months and it was fine, not exciting, not passionate, just fine. He was reliable, called when he said he would, showed up on time, had a stable job. My family loved him because he checked all the superficial boxes. Good job, wanted kids, talked about marriage. My mom pulled me aside 3 months in and said, "Don't let this one get away, he's a good man, you're not getting any younger." 6 months into dating, Kevin asked me to move in with him. I hesitated because something felt off. Not wrong exactly, just not right. But my friends said I was overthinking it, that not every relationship is fireworks, that sometimes love is quiet and stable. So I moved in, we played house, split bills, had routine dinners, routine sex, routine everything, and I told myself this was adult love. This was what mature relationships looked like. That the butterflies and passion I felt with other guys was just infatuation, and this steady thing with Kevin was real. A year into living together, he proposed, took me to a nice restaurant, got down on one knee, pulled out a ring, and I said yes, because what else was I going to say? Everyone was watching. He'd clearly planned it and I'd been with him 18 months. If I said no, I'd have to explain why. Have to admit that I didn't feel what you were supposed to feel when the person you love proposes. So I said yes and I cried and everyone thought it was happy tears, but really I was terrified. Terrified that I was making a huge mistake, but too afraid to stop it. The engagement was 10 months long, and the entire time I felt like I was watching my life happen to someone else. We planned the wedding. I picked out dresses and flowers and venues, wrote vows. I didn't need smiled through bridal showers and bachelorette parties, and every single step of the way I had this voice in my head screaming, "This is wrong, you don't love him, you're settling." But I couldn't stop it because I told too many people. Spent too much money, built too much momentum. And besides, everyone kept telling me how lucky I was, how perfect we were together, how beautiful the wedding would be. My best friend Sarah was the only one who asked if I was happy, really happy. We were getting our nails done 2 weeks before the wedding, and she said, "Are you sure about this? You seem off, you don't seem like a bride in love." And I got defensive, told her I was just stressed about wedding planning. That of course I loved Kevin, that I was absolutely sure. And she looked at me with this sad knowing expression and said, "Okay, but if you're not sure, it's not too late to stop this. Being alone is better than being in the wrong marriage." And I laughed it off. Told her she was being dramatic, but her words haunted me. The night before my wedding, I lay awake next to Kevin in our hotel room, separate from mine per tradition, and I almost called it off. Almost texted my mom and said I couldn't do this. But I imagined the fallout, the embarrassment, the money already spent, the venue already paid for, the guests already in town, the humiliation of being the girl who couldn't even make it to the altar. And I convinced myself I was just having cold feet, that everyone gets nervous, that I'd feel better once we were married. So I walked down that aisle, said those vows, kissed him when the officiant said to, smiled for 300 photos, danced at the reception, cut the cake, threw the bouquet, played the part of the happy bride perfectly. And inside I felt hollow, felt like I'd just signed away my life to make other people comfortable, to meet some arbitrary timeline, to avoid being the single one anymore. The honeymoon was in Italy. 14 days that should have been romantic and magical, but instead I felt trapped, watched Kevin take photos of everything and post them with captions about my beautiful wife and best decision I ever made. And I couldn't echo the sentiment, couldn't pretend anymore now that it was just the two of us. He noticed, asked if something was wrong, and I lied. Said I was just tired from the wedding, that I'd feel better once we got home and settled into married life. But I didn't feel better. I felt worse. We moved into a house we bought together, combined our finances, started talking about trying for kids. And every conversation felt like a cage closing tighter. I'd look at him across the dinner table and think, I don't love you. I don't even like you that much. I married you because everyone told me I should, because I was afraid of being alone, because I thought this was what I was supposed to want. But I couldn't say it out loud because what would that make me? The woman who married someone she didn't love just to check a box. 4 months into marriage, we had our first big fight. He wanted to start trying for a baby immediately. Said we didn't have time to waste given my age. And something in me snapped. I said I wasn't ready, that I needed more time. And he got frustrated. Said we talked about this, that kids were always part of the plan, and I exploded. Your plan, this was always your plan. I went along with everything, the moving in, the engagement, the wedding, the house. I've been going along with your timeline, and I don't even know if this is what I want. He stared at me shocked. What are you saying? Are you saying you don't want kids? Are you saying you regret marrying me? And I couldn't answer, literally couldn't speak, because if I answered honestly, I'd have to say yes, yes. I made a mistake, yes, I made a mistake. Yes, I married you for all the wrong reasons. We didn't speak for 3 days after that fight. Moved around the house like strangers, and in that silence I had clarity I'd been avoiding for 2 years. I didn't love Kevin. I liked the idea of being married more than I liked actually being married to him. I'd built my life around what other people expected instead of what I actually wanted. And now I was stuck in a marriage I'd entered with a lie. I started seeing a therapist. Dr. Chen told her everything how I got married because I was tired of being single, tired of the questions and pressured of feeling like something was wrong with me. How? I convinced myself that Kevin was good enough even though I felt nothing how I'd hoped the feelings would grow after marriage, but instead I just felt more trapped. She asked me a question that destroyed me. If you could go back to the day before your wedding, knowing what you know now, would you still go through with it? And I cried because the answer was no, absolutely not. I would have run, I would have faced the embarrassment and the judgment and the financial loss because all of that would have been temporary, but this marriage, this mistake, this was permanent unless I did something about it. Dr. Chen helped me understand that I'd spent my whole life performing for other people, achieving for their approval, making choices based on their timelines, their expectations, their definitions of success, that somewhere along the way I'd stopped listening to myself, stopped trusting my own judgment, started believing that everyone else knew better what I needed than I did, and getting married to Kevin was the ultimate expression of that pattern. I'd literally vowed my life to someone I didn't love because other people thought I should. I realized I had 2 choices: stay in this marriage and slowly suffocate, have kids. I wasn't sure I wanted with a man I definitely didn't love, build a life based on obligation and fear, or leave, face the judgment and the I told you so-s and the shame of being divorced before my first anniversary. Admit I'd made a massive mistake and choose myself even though it meant disappointing everyone. The decision should have been obvious, but it wasn't, because leaving meant admitting failure, meant proving everyone who judged me for being single right, meant being alone again, but this time with divorce baggage, meant financial complications and legal proceedings, and explaining to 300 wedding guests that it didn't work out. I agonized over it for weeks, made pro-con lists, talked to Dr. Chen twice a week, avoided my family because I couldn't face them yet. Then Kevin forced my hand, came home one day with a positive ovulation test he'd somehow gotten access to and said, "Tonight's the night. Tonight's the night. Tonight's the night. We need to try." And I looked at him holding that test with this expectant smile, and I felt nothing but revulsion. Revulsion not at him but at myself for putting myself in this position. For agreeing to build a life with someone I didn't want to build a life with. And I said the truth for the first time since we met. "Kevin, I can't do this. I don't want to have a baby with you. I don't want to be married to you. I made a mistake." His face went through shock, hurt, anger, denial. "You're just scared. It's normal to be scared about having kids. We can wait a few more months." And I shook my head. "It's not about timing. It's about the fact that I don't love you the way a wife should love her husband. I married you because everyone told me I should, because I was afraid of being alone, because I thought this was my last chance, but I was wrong. Being alone is better than being in the wrong marriage. I want a divorce." He tried to fight it at first, wanted couples counseling, wanted to try harder, wanted me to give it more time, but I was done. I'd already wasted 2 years on a relationship I knew wasn't right. I wasn't wasting another day. I moved out that week, stayed with Sarah, who didn't say "I told you so," who just held me while I cried and told me I was brave for choosing myself. The divorce took 8 months. We split assets, sold the house at a loss, divided everything down the middle, and the whole time people had opinions. My mom cried and asked where she went wrong raising me. My aunt said I was throwing away a good man. My married friends said I gave up too easily, that all marriages are hard, that I should have tried harder. But the only person who supported me unconditionally was Sarah, who said, "You were dying in that marriage. I watched you disappear. Now you're coming back to life. Anyone who can't see that doesn't deserve an opinion." She was right. The relief I felt signing those divorce papers was proof I'd made the right choice. I was 38, divorced, living in a small apartment, starting over completely. And I'd never felt lighter, never felt freer. I could breathe again. Could make choices based on what I wanted, not what everyone expected. Could be alone without feeling like I was failing. A year later, I'm 39, still single and genuinely happy. I travel when I want, pursue hobbies I'd abandoned during my marriage, spend time with people who actually know me. I've dated a little, but I'm not in a rush. Not trying to meet some arbitrary timeline, not settling for good enough. I'm learning what I actually want instead of performing what I think I should want, and it's the most honest I've been in years. People still ask when I'll get married again, still treat my divorce like a failure. But I know the truth. Staying in that marriage would have been the real failure. I finally got married, and it was the worst decision I ever made. But leaving, choosing myself, admitting my mistake, that was the bravest thing I've ever done. If you enjoyed my story, please like and subscribe and share this with anyone who feels pressured to meet someone else's timeline. To settle because they're afraid of being alone, to marry someone they don't truly love, because here's the truth. Being unmarried is not a failure. Being divorced is not a failure. The only real failure is living a life that isn't yours, building a future based on other people's expectations, staying in situations that kill your spirit because you're afraid of judgment. I finally got married, and it taught me that marriage isn't the goal. Happiness is authenticity, is living a life you actually want, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit you made a mistake and choose yourself anyway.